Hey there, graphic designers. Today we are going to take a look at our pen tool. Our pen tool is our main drawing tool in Illustrator. It's over on the left-hand side here. It looks like the tip of a pen. So when I click on it, we can come over. You can see we have that little star next to the pen tool. That means we're making a brand new line. So when I click, we get an anchor point. When I move away from that anchor point, we have a predictor line that's going to sort of show where my line's going and what it's going to look like. Now, because I just clicked without dragging, we're getting a straight line. So when I click a second time, we have our two anchor points with that line interconnecting between it. Now, as I continue going, Illustrator always is going to assume that you want to continue drawing from that last point. So every time I click, that line continues on. If I come back over to that last anchor point, we're going to see a little circle appear next to that pen tool, and that's going to basically complete our shape. Now, if we want to take and go with a curved line, you could see that when I completed that shape, we got the little star next to the pen tool, which means we're starting a new line. I'm going to take and click and drag. When we click and drag, we get an anchor point with two handles that are coming out of it. The way that you're dragging is the way that your line is going to go. So because I'm dragging up and to the right, you can see that my line is going to start by curving up and to the right with that predictor right there. We need a second anchor point to take and actually make a line. So I'm going to click and drag because I want the next line to be curved. We can see that our line got placed there. And now because I dragged down and to the right, my future line is going to go down and to the right. So whichever direction you're dragging, your future line is going to take and go. So now if I take and I click and drag, and I get my arc in place where I want it to, but I don't want to come down, I could take and push Option. And when I push Option, I could take and move that future line. So instead of coming downward, we can see that my line is now going to curve upward. And I can continue on. And then once we get back to that beginning anchor point, we could see that little circle, which means we're going to complete that line. Now, when I click and drag, you can see it moves both of those lines together. So I'm going to do a undo right there, Command Z. And what I can do is, as soon as I click with my mouse, I'm going to hold Option as well, and it's going to keep that upper line locked in place and only allow me to move that bottom line. So that Option button comes in handy because it lets you control your future lines, and when you're completing a shape, it's going to lock that last line in place. Now, if I want to come back and edit this, my direct selection tool allows me to move my anchor points. So we can see all the little anchor points that are around here. So if my line isn't exactly lined up where I need it to be, I can take that anchor point and move it. My curves stay the same. It's just physically moving the location of that anchor point and that actual line. If I want to actually edit the curve of a line, I can click on that line with my direct selection tool. We can see the two handles that are there. And underneath my pen tool, I'm going to use the tear off right here. We have our anchor point tool right here. With my anchor point tool, I could come in here, click on a grip, and I could take and edit the curve. So with any line segment, there's usually two handles. Those two handles control that single line. So this one right here is controlling the upper side of this line. This one down here is controlling the lower portion of that line. Whichever way you drag those handles, that line's going to follow. So if you drag it really far out, you get a really long curve to it. If I'm taking and creating a new shape right here, so if I'm in the process of drawing this out, and for some reason I click off, I accidentally hit a shortcut button, or I missed part of the line that I'm drawing, when I go back to my pen tool, you can see that our phase right now has that star, which means we're making a new line. I don't want a new line. I want to continue on from the line that I had. So if I come to one of the ends of the anchor points, and it doesn't matter which side I go to, you'll see a single slash show up. That single slash says is a representation of you basically reconnecting to that line and redrawing it. So if I see that single slash, I could click and drag, and you can see we're sort of like remaking that anchor point, and then we can continue that shape on to make a complete shape. Up here with the pen tool, we have that add and subtract anchor points as well. So we don't need to actually change tools at all for that. If I come over here, You can see we get that little minus that pops up as long as I bring that pen tool over an anchor point. If I need to, I could take and if I go over part of the line, you can see that plus pop up, and we can add an anchor point in there. When you're drawing objects, you will always want to try and draw with the fewest amount of anchor points possible. That's going to give you guys the cleanest lines, and it's going to make it the most easy to edit later on down the line if we need to change the shape at all.